This is a very crucial piece of our investigation.
At the end of the day, he wasn't an important part of this investigation because I didn't even know who he was.
Looking at what you said last September, you were condemning your own party's impeachment efforts, saying that Republicans in the House who are itching for an impeachment inquiry are relying on an imagined history. Did you ever think that it would collapse in this spectacular of a fashion?
Well, Caitlin, it's even more of an imagined history now. Obviously, this witness, and we were warned at the time that we received the document outlining this witness's testimony. We were warned that the credibility of this statement was not known. And yet people, my colleagues, went out and talked to the public about how this was credible and how it was damning and how it proved President Biden's, at the time, Vice President Biden's complicity in receiving bribes. It appears to absolutely be false.
Oh, that's gonna hurt!
So if anyone's wondering how Republican Chair James Comer is handling news that the informant he once deemed extremely credible and vital to the impeachment scam he was overseeing was arrested and charged with being a possible Russian asset, well, he decided to just avoid reporters outside the James Biden interview and instead scurried over to Newsmax, where in the highest pitch possible he downplayed the reliance on the indicted FBI informant.
End of the day, with respect to the FBI informant that Christopher Wray told Jamie Raskin, me, Charles Grassley, Jim Jordan, was one of their most trusted, highest paid informants with the Bureau for over a decade. You know, yep. At the end of the day, he wasn't an important part of this investigation because I didn't even know who he was. All I knew was there was a 1023 that alleged bribery. My investigation's about all the money the Bidens have taken from China, from Romania, from Kazakhstan,
for nothing in return. For nothing.
This guy had absolutely nothing to do with it.
Crazy.
We got a tip. We investigated. We couldn't figure out who it was.
Echoed, of course, by his band of cult-loving cohorts across the board.
There's another name that I think you all recall, and his name was Christopher Steele. And Christopher Steele was the one that had put together the Hillary Clinton bought and paid for dirty Russian dossier, money she funneled through a law group to hire an op research firm that hired Christopher Steele. He turned out not to be credible. By the way, they were warned about that in August of 2016, before the 2016 election by Bruce Orr, that it was political, don't trust it, but they did it anyway. My question is now we have a guy that worked for the FBI yet again, another source that turns out to not be credible. And I'd like to know what is wrong with the FBI. My understanding is this guy was working for the FBI as an informant for 14 years, with even having authority to break the law to get to the bottom of crimes. I'd like to understand why the FBI keeps hiring informants that they then tell us years and years later are not credible, not when it actually matters.
Jared Moskowitz of Florida. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us. You just heard Chairman Jim Jordan say this revelation doesn't change the accusations in their impeachment probe of President Biden. How do you respond to that?
Well, thanks, Will. Thanks for having me. Well, first of all, the magical 1023 form, right? 1023, which apparently also happens to be the same combination that James Comer has on his luggage, right? The information in that form, it's all made up. It was all a lie, right? And in fact, it was information that was passed to the informant from Russian intelligence. Now, by the way, this is the second informant that James Comer and company has relied on that has also been indicted. This is the second informant that they've used that has been indicted. The first one, let's not forget, right, was a Chinese foreign agent that was doing business with the Iranians and the Libyans.
But in groundbreaking news, it seems that, according to their Republican colleague Ken Buck, they were actually well warned about the credibility of Smirnoff's statement. But so hell-bent on framing Biden as a foreign asset, they went out and spread this disinformation across the airwaves, confidently stating that it was not only extremely credible, but damning. In fact, if my memory serves me correct, Fox News' Jesse Waters said the case has been cracked.
The most corroborating evidence we have is that 1023 form from this highly credible, confidential human source, according to U.S. Attorney Scott Brady.
We have determined that whistleblower is extremely credible.
Extremely credible.
A trusted FBI informant has alleged a bribe
to the Biden family.
And a highly credible FBI source alleges that Joe Biden received $5 million in exchange for pressuring for the firing of a Ukrainian prosecutor.
I mean, the case has been cracked, guys. We're just missing the one document the FBI is hiding. And the whistleblower says the FBI has the document.
It appears to absolutely be false and to really undercut the nature of the charges. We've always been looking for a link between what Hunter Biden received in terms of money and Joe Biden's activities or Joe Biden receiving money. This clearly is not a credible link at this point.
So James Comer and Jim Jordan, they knew that this was not corroborated information, yet they still went public with it, talked about it on television, used it to fuel these investigations regardless?
That's what it appears. I certainly didn't have any evidence outside the statement itself that it was credible. And as a prosecutor for 25 years, Caitlin, I never went to the public until I could prove the reliability of a statement. And even then, the only public statement a prosecutor makes is the charging document. Let's see what the evidence is in this impeachment, if there is more evidence, before going forward.
You've been very skeptical of this effort that was so clearly in the making, this impeachment inquiry. You still voted for the impeachment inquiry, though. Do you, now that what's happened this week, wish that you had not voted for that?
No. A big difference between voting for an impeachment and an impeachment inquiry. The inquiry was really required because the White House declined to provide documents that were requested, subpoenaed, because they said that there was no formal impeachment inquiry voted on by the House. At that point, I thought there is no downside to voting for an impeachment inquiry. As long as the public knows and as long as my constituents know, I don't believe that the evidence is there that warrants an impeachment at this point. But certainly an inquiry allows the gathering of information. Let's gather information, but let's not draw conclusions before we have all the information.
Well, now that the witnesses that Republicans have brought in have undercut their claims, the informant is indicted. James Biden today saying that his brother had nothing to do with his business dealings. Is it time for Republicans to drop this impeachment inquiry?
I don't know. I don't know what all the evidence is, Caitlin, and I don't want to judge the evidence one way or the other until I have a chance to sit down with the investigators and go through the evidence. But this certainly undermines a lot. If the impeachment inquiry was based on this witness, it undermines the credibility of this impeachment. I will say that it's suspicious that anybody would pay Hunter Biden as much money as they paid him without any expertise in the oil and gas industry, without any expertise in international banking. So those things are suspicious. But again, there's no link directly to Vice President Biden's activities.
So then why is there an impeachment inquiry? Because, I mean, what evidence is it that you're waiting to see? Because what we've heard has all been basically undercut by this.
I don't disagree with that, Caitlin. I think that what evidence I'm waiting to see in order to vote for an impeachment is that Joe Biden took actions based on payments that were made to Hunter Biden. I have not seen that yet, and I am still a no on an impeachment until I see that type of evidence.
So let me just get this straight, right? You're telling me that these elected officials on taxpayer dime have spent the best part of 18 months waging this nothing burger impeachment sham, taking cues from someone allegedly working with Russian assets, and that they knew that the information may have been shady, but still opted to run that risk anyway? I mean, what traitors?
Legally protected and highly credible whistleblower document.
Aside from anything else, gross overreach, crimes in the court of public opinion, etc., these are the same people that call themselves patriots, who put America first, while they're literally regurgitating propaganda fed to them by someone supposedly working for a foreign government.
But here's the thing. So they've got a lot of receipts with Hunter Biden. They've got a bunch of receipts with Jim Biden as well. But so far, there's nothing to connect all of that to the president in any kind of way that looks like it's illegal or even potentially unethical. Mm-hmm. How much longer can this probe go on before the Republicans have to either put up or move on?
It's a great question. And I think the reason they are suspicious, especially with respect to James Biden, is because you have to look at his resume.
I mean, not only should they be forced to resign from this oversight committee, but a thorough investigation should be held to examine just how much they knew of their informant's ties with Russia before spewing this disinformation live on air.
Ukraine has tapes of Joe Biden Ukraine has tapes of Hunter Biden. The highly credible FBI informant says that the Burisma executive, who allegedly bribed Joe Biden $5 million to fire the prosecutor, has audio recordings of Joe and of Hunter.
The 1023 produced to the House committees redacted reference that the foreign national who allegedly bribed Joe and Hunter Biden allegedly has audio recordings of his conversation with them. 17.
Yesterday, Senator Chuck Grassley stood on the Senate floor and alleged that there are 17 recordings.
Chris Wray redacted the 1023 that he gave to the committee, showing that there were 17 actual recordings.
Now, thankfully, there are Democrats like Jamie Raskin who will be first in line to spearhead such efforts.
Hello, everyone. I wanted to just start by restating the obvious, which is that the impeachment investigation essentially ended yesterday in substance, if not in form, with the explosive revelation that Mr. Smirnov's allegations about Ukrainian Burisma payments to Joe Biden were concocted along with Russian intelligence agents. And it appears like the whole thing is not only obviously false and fraudulent, but a product of Russian disinformation and propaganda. And that's been the motor force behind this investigation for more than a year. As for today's transcribed interview with the brother of President Biden, Mr. James Biden, we obviously, again, have heard nothing indicating that Joe Biden had anything to do with the business ventures of Hunter Biden or James Biden. And nothing has contradicted that basic understanding that we've had for many, many months now. So that's essentially where we are. Again, I'm restating my call to Chairman Comer, to Speaker Johnson, to fold up the tent to this circus show. It's really over at this point.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.